Okay, let's be honest. We are all so tired of the same old advice when it comes to setting goals. So in this explainer, we're going to move way beyond the cliches and look at what the science actually says works when it comes to turning our biggest ambitions into reality.
We've all been there, right? You set that big New Year's resolution, and it's basically forgotten by February. Or maybe it's that huge career move that just never ever seems to get off the ground. It's this super common, super frustrating feeling. But it turns out this isn't just a personal problem.
And get this, it's not just us. This is a massive issue, even for huge companies. Research shows that only about 20% of companies actually manage to pull off 80% of their big strategic goals. I mean, that's an enormous gap between intention and execution. And it just goes to show that simply setting a goal, yeah, that's not nearly enough.
For decades, the answer we've all been given seems so simple. Just set SMART goals. But you know, if it were really that easy, we'd all be crushing our goals left and right, wouldn't we? The truth is, the follow-through is where everything gets messy. And that's exactly what we need to unpack.
Okay, so before we tear it all down, let's get one thing straight. The classic advice isn't completely wrong. Not at all. In fact, it's built on a really solid scientific foundation that's worth understanding before we can move beyond it. This really gets to the core of some amazing research. A couple of psychologists, Edwin Locke and Gary Latham, they found something kind of wild. Telling someone to do your best is one of the least effective ways to motivate them. Why? Because a vague goal has no external reference point, right? It's totally subjective. But a specific, challenging goal, that gives your brain a clear target to lock onto.
And this big idea, it's called goal-setting theory. After they summed up 35 years of studies on this, the conclusion was just unmistakable. People who are given specific, difficult, but not impossible goals consistently, and I mean consistently, outperform people with easy goals, vague goals, or no goals at all. This is the science that powers basically all modern goal-setting advice.
So all this dense science eventually got packaged into something you've definitely heard of, the SMART framework. It's a simple little acronym that turns those scientific principles into a practical checklist. You want to make your goal specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to your values, and time-bound. It's a fantastic starting point. But, and this is a big but, it's nowhere near the whole story.
All right, so here's where things get interesting. That same intense focus that helps us achieve our goals, well, it can also have some serious and often totally hidden downsides.
The writer Mark Manson really hits the nail on the head here. This obsession can make us lose the very meaning we were looking for. We get so laser-focused on hitting the target that we completely forget why we even aimed for it to begin with.
And it's not just a nice idea, the research totally backs this up. An intense focus on one single goal can lead to tunnel vision, where we start neglecting other really important areas of our work or our life. It's been shown to encourage unethical behavior as people start cutting corners to hit a number. It can even kill our intrinsic motivation, turning something we loved into just a chore.
And that right there, that uncovers the biggest trap of all, chasing those external achievements, the salary, the job title, that actually clash with our deep internal values, like autonomy or creativity. That misalignment, it's a perfect recipe for misery, even if you actually hit the goal.
Okay, so we've seen the problem, but just knowing the pitfalls is half the battle, right? So now, let's get into the good stuff, some modern, psychologically backed strategies that are actually designed for the real world.
First up is a tool called Whoop. And no, it's not a silly sound effect. It's actually an incredible 4-step exercise. You start with your wish. Then you vividly imagine the best outcome. But then, and this is the absolute game changer, you identify the main internal obstacle that could stop you. Finally, you make a specific plan, an if-then plan, to get over it. You're basically preparing your brain for the roadblocks before they even happen.
And you might be thinking, does this little mental trick actually work? Well, the data is pretty shocking. Take a look at this study with super busy medical residents. The group that just set goals, they barely changed their habits. But the group that used Whoop, they studied almost 3 times as much. That is a huge difference, just from mentally rehearsing the obstacles.
All right, next up is a strategy for building resilience, so you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. It's called the parallel track system. Instead of betting everything on one goal, you have multiple tracks running at once. Your main track, a complementary side track, a super important backup track, and maybe even a crazy, high-risk, high-reward wildcard track. This way, you're always making progress somewhere, even if one path stalls out. Now this next one, it sounds a little crazy at first, but stick with me. It's called the micro-failure budget. Instead of trying to avoid failure, you literally plan for it. The whole idea is to aim for 2 or 3 small screw-ups every month. A pitch that gets rejected, a marketing idea that totally flops. This does 2 amazing things. It makes you way less afraid to take risks, and it reframes every little failure as valuable data that teaches you what doesn't work.
Okay, so we've got the science, we've got these awesome psychological tools. Now, how do we pull it all together into a master plan that actually works for you and leads to sustainable growth? If you remember one single thing from all of this, let it be this. Your external goals, the what you're chasing, have to be guided by your internal values, the why behind it all. Without that deep connection, you risk achieving a bunch of stuff that brings you zero satisfaction.
And that idea leads to this incredibly powerful mental shift. Instead of just focusing on the outcome, you focus on becoming the kind of person who achieves that outcome. So don't just say, I want to earn 6 figures. Frame it differently. Tell yourself, I am becoming someone who thinks and acts like a higher earner. When you shift your identity, the actions start to feel natural, not forced.
And last but not least, let's talk about timing. Ditch the annual plan. Seriously, a year is just too long. The world changes way too fast. 90 days, that's the sweet spot. You can break it into 3 phases. The first month is all about building your foundation. The second is for gaining momentum and making little corrections. And that final month is for acceleration, where you really compound your efforts before you plan the next 90-day cycle. It's just a much more agile and realistic way to operate.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought. We always see a goal as some finish line we have to cross. But what if its true purpose isn't the achievement itself? What if the real prize is in the process, in discovering the skills, the resilience, and the new identity you have to build just to get there? What if the journey and who you become on it is the real goal?